Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. My name is Councillor David Connor, and I'm Chairman of the Planning Committee here at Fenland. Welcome also to those members of the press and the public who join us via the live stream. Before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind everyone to turn their mobiles and computers to silent and ensure when using the microphones the red light is on and turned off when you've finished speaking. We'll now go to agenda item number 1, and I'd like to ask member services if they had any apologies for absence. Over to you, Jo. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies received today from Councillor Gershner. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jo. The agenda item is number 2 is to confirm and sign the minutes from the meeting of the 27th of November 2024. Do I have a proposer to approve the minutes? Councillor French, you're proposing. Who's going to second them? Councillor Miffordon. All those in favour then? That's unanimous. They've been approved. Thank you, councillors. And now we'll go to agenda item number 3, which is urgent items. There is one urgent item which has been circulated to members and will be considered at agenda item number 13. Agenda item number 4 is declarations of interest. Member services will now go to each councillor in turn, and can you please state if you have anything to declare in relation to any agenda item on this afternoon's agenda. Thank you. So over to you again, Jo. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Jo. Just that I'm a member of Chatteris Town Council, but I leave the room when any planning matters are discussed, and I take no part in the debate or voting with that. And that's it today.
Thank you very much. Councillor Connor.
Nothing today, Jo. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs.
Thank you. Member of March Town Council, but I don't take any part in planning applications. Also, I will declare item, I can't find it now, item 10, as a member of the Conservative Party, we rent an office from MGS, but we don't actually go into the office. So it's just to make it crystal clear.
Thank you. Councillor Mafferdon.
Thank you, Jo. I'm a member of Wisbech Town Council, but I'm not on the planning committee there. On agenda item number 7, I have in 2018-2019 done business with that company, but I will keep an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Jo. I'm a member of Manea Parish Council, take no part in their planning, and I also attend, although I'm not a Chatteris Town Councillor, and leave the room when planning is discussed at Chatteris. On item number 5, the company or the applicant is a former customer of a business I'm a director of, so I will take no part in that. Item number 8, on a previous visit, the applicant spoke to me for a couple of minutes. However, I remain open-minded on that. And on item number 11, the applicant was a supplier to a previous business I was a director of. That was some 15 years ago. However, I remain open-minded. And as Councillor French has said, on item number 10, I am a Conservative member, and the offices are at MJS, but I don't go or use that facility.
Thank you. Councillor Senate Clough.
Nothing to declare.
Thank you, Chairman.
Just before we move on, Jo, could you put me down as a Conservative councillor as well, Jo? Just
is that an en bloc?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what we need to do.
Thank you very much.
Super, thank you. So now we'll go to the main part of the meeting. Members should only make a proposal on a planning application when invited to do so. However, I will initially ask you if anybody is going to propose the officer's recommendation. Clearly, if no such proposal is forthcoming, or if that proposal fails, I'll be then looking for an alternative proposal. Members are reminded that such a proposal should be accompanied by the planning reasons for doing so. So now, without further ado, I'll hand over to David Rowan. He's the development manager here at Fenland to present application FYR 23/0550F, agenda item number 5. So David, when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a full application to erect 18 dwellings with associated infrastructure at Phase B, Land East of Berryfield in March. Initially draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated in respect to this item. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It's an agricultural field sort of adjacent to the built form of March and accessed by the existing Berryfields development to the west. The gap between the site and Berryfield shown on these two images is currently being developed out for 28 dwellings. The eastern part of the site is located within flood zone 2, with the very eastern extremes of the site in flood zone 3. And members should be aware the site forms an allocation in the emerging local plan. So the submitted site plan is shown here. The application proposes to continue Berryfields through the currently undertaken development, which is kind of shown in the pink, with the access road then turning sort of through 90 degrees north. Public open space will be located to the east of the access road. The ponds shown within this area would form additional surface water storage, and in the drainage strategy submitted actually proposes an attenuation feature adjacent to the northern turning head, which isn't actually illustrated on this particular plan. The yellow line sort of running broadly north to south through the site denotes the extent of flood zone 2. So flood zone 2 is to the right hand side of that line, and as you can see that means that it's quite evident that the access road, considerable part of that access road, is within flood zone 2. So the upper images here show various street scenes within the site, also show how the dwellings proposed would relate to some of those existing dwellings in the vicinity. So the difference between the sort of the white dwellings and the darker dwellings are the existing and proposed. And then the lower images show various visualizations of the development. And just moving on to photographs of the site. So the photo here shows the development currently being built out on that sort of left-hand side, with then the remainder of the application site on the right-hand side. Then a view across the site, sort of west to east. So to summarise, in many respects the application is deemed to be acceptable when considering a number of material issues. However, as indicated previously, the access road within the site is significantly within flood zone 2. This would actually serve 10 of the dwellings, so just over half the dwellings proposed. The newly published MPPF, which came out just before Christmas, confirms explicitly the previously kind of commonly accepted view that no built development, which would include access to developments, should be located in an area that would be at risk of flooding unless demonstrated to be sequentially acceptable. No sequential test has been submitted as part of the application, with the applicant instead relying on the fact that the site is allocated in the emerging local plan. As has consistently been set out to members over the last couple of years, it is not considered that any weight can be given to the emerging local plan and therefore to that allocation. In addition, the Council's ecology advisor has indicated that the development appears to result in a net loss of biodiversity value, which would conflict with the requirements of policy LP19 of the local plan, which seeks to ensure that there is no net loss of biodiversity. Consequently, the application is recommended for refusal as set out within the officer report. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, David. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Shana Jackson, of course she's the agent, to make her presentation to the committee. When you're ready, Mrs. Jackson, you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak in support of this application. As you've just heard, we're seeking full planning permission for the construction of 18 dwellings. The scheme comprises Phase B of the existing Berryfields residential development. The proposal would result in high-quality housing within a primary market town. The principle is acceptable in accordance with local housing policies, as well as sustainable development objectives as set out in the MPPF. However, we're before you with a recommendation of refusal due to a perceived lack of compliance with the sequential test and failure to provide 10% biodiversity net gain. With regards to the sequential test, paragraph 174 of the MPPF states that the aim of the sequential test is to steer new development to the areas with the lowest risk of flooding from any source, and that the strategic flood risk assessment will provide the basis for applying this test. This is reiterated in policy LP14 of the local plan. The site is located within flood zones 1, 2 and 3 of the Environment Agency flood maps for planning. Noting the requirements of the sequential test, we've placed the dwellings and their private amenity spaces within flood zone 1, and therefore on land at lowest risk of flooding. With this in mind, no person or property will be put at risk, and the proposal would comply with the aims of the sequential test. However, the reason for refusal states that the sequential test is not passed because the access road is within flood zone 2. Paragraph 175 of the MPPF states that, and I quote, "The sequential test should be used in areas known to be at risk now or in the future from any form of flooding, except in situations where a site-specific flood risk assessment demonstrates that no development within the boundary, including access or escape routes, would be located on an area that would be at risk of flooding." I would interpret that as being that where a flood risk assessment demonstrates that the development is not at risk of flooding, then the sequential test need not be applied. With this in mind, I draw your attention to the consultation responses. The Environment Agency has raised no objection to the development on flood risk grounds. The middle level commissioners state that the proposal is capable of providing many benefits, and the lead local flood authority note that the IDB are satisfied and raise no objections themselves. With all these statutory consultees on board, and noting the wording of paragraph 175 of the MPPF, I would strongly argue that the aims and objectives of the sequential test are met. Quite simply, if we were restricted to placing the development, including the access, within flood zone 1, the land is effectively undevelopable, as 3/4 of the site would need to be a road. It would not be possible to design the dwellings of a scale and character which would meet local plan standards in the land available to us. This would be a real shame given that our client is ready to start developing straight away, and in view of the land being proposed for allocation with the emerging plan. The second reason for refusal relates to a failure to provide 10% biodiversity net gain on site. I draw your attention to paragraph 10.18 of the committee report, where it states that the application is not subject to the statutory 10% biodiversity net gain. This is because the application was submitted in 2023, however the BNG requirements did not kick in until the beginning of 2024. With this in mind, I'd suggest that the second reason for refusal is wholly unreasonable. However, you will be aware that the site is currently in active agricultural use, and therefore the actual biodiversity interest is not as high as it could be. With this in mind, and given the land available to us, which is within flood zones 2 and 3, providing the necessary 10% BNG uplift would be quite achievable. And this is something we'd happily accept as a condition on part of any planning permission you should deem necessary. In conclusion, I'd highlight to you the benefits of the scheme, which comprise the provision of new quality housing within a primary market town, which can be delivered immediately. I would suggest that the objection with regards to the sequential test is unfounded, given that the dwellings and private gardens are located within flood zone 1, and that the flood risk assessment and statutory consultees confirm that there is no risk of flooding. With regards to biodiversity net gain, we are not obliged under legislation to provide a 10% uplift. However, we would be happy to accept a condition to provide the necessary detail if you require it. I hope that you're able to see the benefits of the scheme and grant planning permission accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Jackson. Members, questions, clarifications to Mrs Jackson, please. Councillor French.
Thank you. Hi. You're applying for 18 dwellings on site and no affordables, nothing towards health, nothing towards schools. So who do you think is going to pick up the cost of actually supplying these? Because 18 houses, dwellings, you're going to have a minimum of 36. Many kids you're going to have, and you're not supplying 1 penny. So the question is, who's going to pay for it if you're not prepared to? Not you personally.
No, I can't afford it. No, I mean we've gone through the viability assessment, and you know it's been confirmed that it's not viable to provide that. I guess it's the same as any other development where no contributions are required. It's picked up elsewhere. My understanding is that 18 units wouldn't trigger health provision anyway. But with regards to education and affordable housing, it would be much the same as anything else that doesn't provide it. You know, would go into the system as normal.
But the question was, who's going to supply the funding for that if applicants aren't going to?
So it would come from, as normal, so it would come from the county council or, you know,
As taxpayers.
Okay, Good questions, Councillor French. Anybody else at all? No, thank you very much. Members, questions to officers? No one's got any burning desire I can see, so that's fine then. So we'll move on to invite members to debate the item in respect to the material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Insubordination, Councillor French.
Mr Chairman, I don't think anybody wants to debate this. I think we should go straight to a proposal.
Well, that's what we'll have to do. Oh, Councillor Benny, thank you.
Well, Mr Chairman, I have a slightly different view, as I very often do. We've got houses that are being built in flood zone 1, and we've got a road that part of is in flood zone 2. Well, we had a similar thing at Chatteris some time ago where the refusal was that the roadway was in flood zone 3. And I said, well, if you apply that logic to any building, you couldn't build anything in Chatteris because it's surrounded by flood zone 3. Other than that, this is a very good application. Also, the net biodiversity gain that is not there, if words right, this was submitted before that policy came in. That's what we just heard, I believe. That came in April 24, and this application is dated 23. So if that did, at the time it was submitted, that could come in. I can see officers fidgeting to come back to me on that one, but it was accepted in good faith on that, and therefore you could say that that loss or gain, whichever way around it is, that could be very debated. And the fact we've got attenuation ponds, that would add adding, that could be conditioned quite easily, that could be done as a net biodiversity gain. I'm sure that could be. Just another opinion for members to look at and debate.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I sort of concur with Councillor Benny's reasoning there. I called this in, it's clear to see. When I went down there just before Christmas, probably a couple of days before Christmas, when it came to me, I saw it all and looked, and I thought, well, all these houses in flood zone 1. The road is obviously, that we could see, was in flood zone 2. We have to be consistent. We had one in Chatteris some early part of the year when it was the same. And it will, and all the main consultants at middle level and the IDB have all made, you know, comments that they, you know, it's okay. So I'm happy to listen to what anybody else says, but you know, I'm mindful of going against officers on this one. But we'll listen to what anybody else has got to say. Thank you. You can.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I think probably to help inform the remainder of the debate might be useful just to clarify one or two issues, particularly ones that I think Mrs Jackson, the agent, has flagged up. So I think firstly, with regards to the issue of biodiversity net gain, the application isn't recommended for refusal because it's failing to deliver the 10% increase in biodiversity value as set out within the Environment Act, and which came in early 2024. It's actually recommended for refusal on the basis that there would be a net loss of biodiversity net gain, contrary to policy LP 19 of the local plan. So I think in terms of the statements made by Mrs Jackson there, I think that's a little bit incorrect in terms of what she's perhaps put across to members there. And in terms of the issue of the access road, clearly we've got a new NPPF that's come out that is explicit that where any form of built development, be that houses, be that roads, is at risk of flooding, which clearly this is, given it's in flood zone 2, then the sequential test needs to be applied. We've got no sequential test in front of us. So I think from those two perspectives, as officers, we feel that there's a clear breach of, or a clear conflict with policy arising from this application.
Thank you for the clarification, David. Councillor French again, thanks.
Thank you. I know this site particularly well. Yes, the road does flood. When we had the flooding in 2020, right along the whole of Elm Road was flooded. I don't believe the application looks okay apart from the flooding issue, but I don't think we should be, and I think we discussed this several months ago, we shouldn't be approving things that are going to cause further problems for other people in other bits of land, and I think this one would.
Okay, we're still in debate. Anybody want to add to it? We've got two different conflicts there, comments? No, debate's finished then. Okay, officers, would you like to come in? No? Okay, so I'm looking for a proposal, please, for Councillor French.
Propose the officer's recommendations.
Okay. Have you got a second for that? Councillor Clough. So we've got a proposal to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application. It's proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Senate Clough. Can I have a show of hands on that?
That's 3 votes, Chairman.
Those against? So that application has been refused. Thank you. Glad to see you back, Councillor Marks. Now I'll hand over to David Rowan to present application FYR 23/0940F, agenda item number 6. So David, when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a full application to erect 70 dwellings, land west and south of 74 West Street in Chatteris. I initially just draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated. Apologies, we appear to have lost the location plan somehow along the way. So the application site is shown here on the site layout plan. Just to familiarise members, West Street is to the east of the site. To the west of the site is the former railway line and the bridleway that runs down that, and to the north of the site is Chatteris Town Football Club. The site is largely within flood zone 1, sort of the western extremes of the site are within flood zone 3. And in terms of the site layout, as you can see, the access to the site is sort of to the southern end. Before then, that sort of runs then north-south within the site. To the west of that access road are attenuation features and a locally equipped area of play. And then beyond that is open space. The two sort of yellow lines running north-south and east-west denote an easement to an existing sewer, which is within the site. In terms of the site, some longer serving members may recall planning permission was granted on this for 58 dwellings in 2016. While the reserved matters application was made, that ultimately was has not been sort of developed out, and that permission has now lapsed. However, as a result of that, excuse me, the site does form an allocation in the emerging local plan. So to move on to street scene drawings, got various sort of street scenes shown here. So the application has been submitted following pre-application discussions where issues of design and layout were discussed, and it's considered that the application is now acceptable in this regard. As can be seen in the upper image, there are some some bungalows proposed. So effectively, I think 6 bungalows are proposed, where the access joins West Street. So the first part of the development is a group of bungalows. It should also be pointed out that the application is for 100% affordable housing. Moving on here, we've got a slightly more detailed street scene showing some of the house types in a little bit more detail. Then moving on to a photo of the site. So this is looking north at West Street with the position of the access shown in red on that left-hand side. That access position is pretty much in the same place that the access was indicated back in 2016 to that development. I think as well, it's probably also just worth pointing out sort of some of the mix of house types that there are on West Street, which is sort of slightly evident from this image, and also in this image. So the red line here shows where a pedestrian access would be taken in the northeastern corner of the site out onto West Street, and sort of through the middle of that image is where the football club is. So this is, say, very much in that northeastern corner. And then again, we've got a view sort of from that northeastern corner looking across the site. You see the sort of the current nature of that, and its position very much sort of on the edge of the town. And then further view, sort of looking back across towards the main built form of Chatteris from that public right of way along the former railway line. So to summarise, the principle of developing the site for housing is considered to comply with the relevant policies of the local plan, and indeed planning permission has previously been granted on the site for residential development. The development would be 100% affordable, and it is considered that weight should be given to this. As a consequence of the 100% affordable housing delivery, however, no other contributions would be forthcoming to health or education, other than addressing the relationship with the football ground as referenced in the update report. As members will probably be aware, that sort of position is consistent with the council's supplementary planning document on development contributions. In all other respects, the application is considered to be acceptable, and there are no outstanding technical issues from any consultees. As such, the application is recommended to be granted as per the agenda and as updated within the update report. Thank you, Chairman.
Yep, thank you once again, David. We have one speaker on the application. I'd like to invite Jake Stentiford, the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I'm Jake Stentiford. I'm the agent for this application. Your officer's report sets out a clear recommendation for approval, recognising that the application is in accordance with the local plan and meets the requirements of all relevant policies. I'd just like to add a few comments from me in support of the scheme. The backdrop to this application is the previous planning permission for 58 houses. That was an outline consent for an open market scheme with 25% affordable housing, which would have equated to 15 affordable homes. We've looked at this site in the context of the very high levels of need for new affordable housing in Chatteris and decided that bringing forward a scheme of all affordable homes on this site is the right thing to do. We've also been able to secure more land than the previous scheme, which has allowed us to provide more affordable homes, as well as increasing the provision of public open space, landscaping and biodiversity areas. We're very proud of the quality of the design we've achieved on this scheme, with generous gardens, public landscaping and open space, tree planting throughout to create green tree-lined streets, and a varied materials palette to maintain visual interest moving through the site. This level of design quality is the result of our extensive work with your officers to amend the scheme, make sure it meets all of the requirements of policy, as well as meeting the needs of residents. We submitted this application at the end of 2023, so you can see that we really have taken the time to respond positively to consultee comments and make the appropriate amendments. I think the result is an excellent quality tenure-blind development that will create a distinctive neighbourhood, an attractive place to live, while making a positive contribution to the character of the town. This development will be delivered in partnership with a housing association, which offers a range of benefits because the wider site will remain in one ownership, being actively managed with ongoing maintenance of public areas, open space, parking and drainage infrastructure, and down to the important details for the street environment, such as management of bins, with a permanent single point of contact to resolve any local concerns. The most important issue for this application is the delivery of affordable homes. Your officers in the housing team have provided the latest figures from the housing register on affordable need in Chatteris and the wider district, and they demonstrate a critically urgent situation of families with an immediate need for a suitable affordable home. Looking firstly at families with a local connection to Chatteris across all bands who need a 2, 3 or 4 bedroom home, There are a total of 115 households with an immediate need, and 60 of these are in bands A or B, which includes families currently occupying a property which has been assessed as posing an urgent or high health and safety risk to them. Separate to those with a local connection, there are a further 265 households with a preference to live in Chatteris who have an immediate need for a 2, 3 or 4 bed home. Of these, 144 are in bands A or B. This is an acute level of need that cannot be addressed by a single development. However, it is clear that our scheme will go a significant way towards alleviating the situation for many of these families, delivering a quite exceptional public benefit in these local circumstances. The shortage of quality affordable housing is at the root of many of our pressing social challenges. When people have a decent home, their health improves, their ability to work improves, the burden on local health services is reduced and productivity rises. We're ready to move quickly to get this scheme into construction with the aim of being on site by the summer, making these homes available to those families in desperate need as soon as possible. In order for us to do that, I'd be very grateful for your support for our application today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Members, questions, clarifications? I'll take Councillor Benny first and Councillor French. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. How quickly are you going to build these?
We, as I say, we work in partnership with a housing association. There's a housing association who is likely to be taking this forward, who is quite an advanced way down the line in terms of discussions on that delivery. Once that agreement locks into place, it is quick, because the grant funding which enables the delivery of these schemes requires that we work to those funding windows. So there will be a lot of pressure on us, no need for any pressure from the council to get on site, deliver this quickly. As I say, intention is that we're on site by the summer.
Thank you very much.
Good news indeed. Councillor French.
Thank you. If this is approved, is it proposed that you'll have the road adopted?
The internal...
The whole site? Will it be adoptable?
Yes, so there are some private drives within the scheme. I think we've got a maximum of 5 units on a private drive, as we usually do. Apart from that, the spine road through the site is intended to be adopted, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, welcome. I wondered if you'd read Chatteris Town Council's comments, where you've said that you feel that it's right to increase dwellings to 70. Chatteris Town Council don't seem to share that view. So can I ask you if you've considered all their comments about the impact on neighbouring roads?
Yes, sorry, on the impact of...
So the neighbouring roads are West Street, the junction of West Street and Huntingdon Road.
Yes, so specifically in terms of the roads, the application's been supported by detailed transport statement, which has looked at the impact, found the impact to be acceptable. We're making some improvements to West Street. The report gives the scheme the all clear, and the response that's come back from the consultees is that they agree that no objections have been raised by statutory consultees, internal consultees, about impacts on roads. So the scheme is doing what it needs to in that regard. In terms of the overall density, I think we're agreed with officers that the density that we're proposing for the site is perfectly acceptable, given the site context. But then in context of the need for these affordable homes, I think that needs to be the prominent consideration, really. I think we would be doing, we would not be doing our jobs right as planners if we were to deliver a lower than appropriate density on a site like this in the context of that need.
I appreciate your argument. As a member of the Planning Committee, it's my job to put forward other people's views, and as such I was putting forward the view of the Town Council, so I wanted further clarity on that. Thank you for providing it.
Councillor Mifferton, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to ask, did you say, or you didn't say, will there be a management committee looking after the public spaces?
Yes, yes. So there's going to be a Section 106. Obviously, the recommendation here is for a Section 106 to be entered into before the determination. Section 106 will deal with how open space is managed. That's usually constructed so that the responsibility falls first to the landowner, which would be the housing association, and they can then delegate that responsibility for whole site management to a management company. Most often, and I think it will be the case in this case, the housing association themselves will maintain responsibility directly for the management of the public realm landscape across the whole site.
Right. So you are I thought you said the ownership was with the contractor and then the housing association will take over after that. But what if a situation where the management committee, it has happened in the past, where they simply just folded and then residents have been left to deal with issues by themselves?
Yeah, that's the situation that you have good assurance won't happen here, because you've got a housing association that's going to own the site and be looking after the site in the long term, and the Section 106 obligation for the management of the site and the open space is enforceable against them. So there's always going to be someone responsible, and there's a long-term financial incentive for them to make sure that management is done properly.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, any more questions at all? Some of my questions have been answered, and all of them have been answered, so I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you very much. So, members, questions to clarifications to officers? No, officers are getting away with it very light at the moment, aren't they? So, members, I'm going to bring this into debate. Who wants to start the debate off? Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Right, this falls in my ward as a councillor. I know there is local objection to this application, and I could sit here and I could grandstand and vote against it and, you know, try and be the saviour of Chatteris from having these houses inflicted on us. But truthfully, we need houses. Wombe Farm in Chatteris, 60% of those houses sold have gone to first-time buyers. 58% of those houses have been sold to people that live within a 6-mile radius of Chatteris, and 87% of those houses sold have been sold to people that come from a Cambridgeshire postcode. So that's fine if you can afford to buy a house, but people keep having children and they have grandchildren, and these children and grandchildren need somewhere to live. The council is spending best part of £1 million on B&B at the moment to look after, to put people in emergency accommodation because we haven't got anywhere to put them. Now, as a councillor, one of the legal duties we have is to provide homes for people. Now, if people can't afford to buy a house, they still need a home and they still need somewhere to live. And as unpopular as this may be, council tax is going to go up and up and up to pay for this accommodation that we're paying for. Or we build some houses to put these people in and improve the quality of their lives. Well, I became a councillor to help people and to improve the quality of people's lives. And this will do that. This has got a recommendation to approve. If we turn this down, this will go to appeal and we will lose hands down and we will get costs and the council tax will go up yet again to pay for a bad mistake. There's bad mistakes and there's bad mistakes that cost money, and to turn this down will be one that costs money. As much as there are people that don't want it, there is a need for it. And the greater good, unfortunately, sometimes has to take precedent over what people think and what people want. And this needs approving. We need the houses. The people who are living in bed and breakfasts need somewhere to live. The fact that Chatteris has sold houses in Wombe Farm to people so close, that shows that there is such a need for housing in Chatteris. And I hope to see these houses go to local people. I really want to see to local Chatteris people and from the surrounding area. The figures from Wombe Farm indicate to me that there is a need for housing. And if we don't pass these, we're going to have people come knocking on our council door and saying, why can't my son or granddaughter have a council house or a social housing? And this is what we do. This is what we need to do. And I see, that there are objections to this, but truthfully, we have a need for this, and it would be dereliction of duty if we do not pass this.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Bennett here. This is one of the better applications I've seen. The applicant agent has worked closely with FDC officers and it's brought this to a timely conclusion. I'm really, really pleased if things go right and it's passed here today, which I'm absolutely, hopefully, certainly will be, because we do need these houses. I'm really pleased that they're going to look to start in the summertime, which would be absolutely brilliant. So I am absolutely going to support this. I think we definitely need houses, and this is one of the better applications. And I'd just like to thank the agent for, as I said, just for working with FDC officers to bring this to a timely conclusion. Thank you. Anybody else at all want to add to the debate? Councillor Rifferton, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think you've both said it all. I think there's no sensible reason not to support this application. We do need affordable housing in Finland. We have a huge waiting list and it's costing us a lot of money. So I think we've said it all, Chair. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Right, so I'm going to bring the debate to a close now. Officers, have you got anything to note? So I'm looking for a proposer on this, please. Councillor Rifferton, what are you proposing? Okay, you've got a second to Councillor Marks, I see. So we've got a proposal to go with officer recommendation to approve this application, proposed by Councillor Rifferton, seconded by Councillor Marks. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal, please?
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
So obviously that's been approved. Thank you very much for that. I'll now hand over to Tracy Ranger. She's the Development Officer here at Fenland to present application F/YR24/0365F, agenda item number 7. So Tracy, when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So agenda item 7 is a full planning application for the erection of one dwelling.
Tracy, do you just want to hang on a moment, please?
Sorry. I go again. So agenda item 7 is a full planning application for the erection of one dwelling, 2-storey, 4-bed, with a 1.8 metre max height front boundary wall in association with the existing business and the formation of an access involving the demolition of existing outbuildings. The dwelling would be positioned between the existing remaining Plash Drove farmhouse and the buildings associated with Sims Contract Furniture Limited. So this slide shows the site location plan and aerial photo. The site is located to the south of Plash Drove. The plan and photo clearly show that the site is located in the open countryside. The site is approximately 500 metres southwest of the village of Tolmus Drove and approximately 2 kilometres south of Murrow. The slide shows the existing and proposed site plan. So the existing is on the left and the proposed is on the right. The blue line area includes Plash Farmhouse and to the east and Sims Contract Furniture Limited to the west. The proposed dwelling would be located in between. The existing plan shows that a number of existing outbuildings associated with the business would need to be removed to allow for the development. This slide is the street scene with Plash Farmhouse to the left and Sims Contract Furniture Limited to the right. The proposed dwelling in between. So this shows the proposed dwelling elevations and floor plans. The dwelling is proposed to be 2-storey and have 4 bedrooms with an open plan kitchen, diner and lounge and separate study. move on to the photos. So photo 1 in the top left, this photo looks northeast along the front of the site where the proposed new entrance would be located. One of the outbuildings to be demolished and out towards Plash Farmhouse. You can see them all there. Photo 2 shows, looks southeast towards where the dwelling would be located. Photo 3 shows the outbuildings proposed for demolition. And photo 4 shows Sims Contract Furniture Limited. In summary, the site is located in the open countryside. Insufficient evidence that the dwelling is essential in this location or its functional need has been submitted. There is a dwelling existing on site associated with the business. A dwelling between Plash Farmhouse and the business would be out of character with the sporadic dwellings on large plots along Plash Drove. The proposal is contrary to policy LP12D and LP16 of the Fenland Local Plan. The application is partially located within Flood Zone 3 and the application is not accompanied by a sequential test. Therefore, the sequential test is not passed and the application is contrary to policy LP14 of the Fenland Local Plan. Accordingly, the officer recommendation is to refuse the application.
Thank you once again. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Shana Jackson. She's the agent to make her presentation to the committee. You know what to do, 5 minutes. Thank you.
As you've just heard, this application seeks full planning permission for the construction of an occupational dwelling required for the effective and safe operation of Sims Contract Furniture. By way of a bit of background, the Sims family have been on site since 1994, where the applicant's father ran an upholstery business. This has since evolved into the successful enterprise which is known as Sims Contract Furniture, which is on site today. The business is concerned with designing and manufacturing high-end bespoke furniture. Their clients include restaurants, pubs and other venues. Over the recent years, the business has grown rapidly and there's been a need to extend the workshop buildings on site and change the layout of the yard area, and this can be seen in the planning history available to you. It's an exciting time for the business as it's just bought another company which will be amalgamated with Sims Contract Furniture, and now this has been secured, they can start looking at the logistics of extending the building. The business employs 10 people and therefore does have a meaningful contribution to the local rural economy. The rapid growth of the company, coupled with the increased number of high-value products and materials on site, have resulted in an increased risk of security. I understand that this is not strictly a justification for a new dwelling. However, I'm sure you can appreciate that the applicant wishes to be on site to protect his family's livelihood. The family business has evolved over the years to the successful enterprise that it is now, and this proposal is part of a natural evolution, much like any other rural business within Fenland. I understand from the applicant that there is a fear of crime within the area, and having looked at the crime statistics myself, I'm aware that there were 4 crimes reported within this postcode within the last year. I therefore have sympathy with the applicant's position. There is an existing dwelling on site known as Plash Farmhouse. However, this is occupied and therefore is not available for the applicant and his family to use for help to look after the business. The application has been recommended for refusal as it's considered there's no need for the proposal in accordance with policy LP3 and paragraph 84 of the MPPF. However, I'd appeal to your discretion in this regard, in that the proposal would support a local and successful rural business by reducing crime and fear of crime. It would also allow for the applicant to be on site to take deliveries and to work late to meet business demands. On the basis that the need for the dwelling is established, the second reason for refusal relating to the sequential test falls away. This is because there is an essential need for this particular dwelling to be in this particular location. Upon passing the sequential test, the exception test must be applied. The site-specific flood risk assessment demonstrates that the proposal is technically safe from flooding, and I'd argue that the benefits gained from supporting a rural enterprise, as set out in the MPPF, would comprise a significant benefit to the rural economy, thereby comprising a community benefit. The exception test is therefore passed, and the proposal would comply with local and national flood risk policies. The third reason for refusal relates to what I would consider to be subjective matters. It states that the proposal would cause harm to the open character of the area, as the proposal is a cramped form of development. However, I would suggest that the dwelling has been carefully designed to appear as a traditional farmstead, positioned within a cluster of existing buildings, rather than spreading the built form out into the open countryside. The dwelling takes design cues from the neighbouring property at Plash Farmhouse by including matching materials and window detailing. I failed to see how the proposal would cause visual harm to the character and appearance of the area. This proposal, quite simply, is for a new dwelling required to support a rural business. The recent increase in the scale of the enterprise has triggered the need for greater security and on-site presence. Supporting rural businesses meets the aspirations of Section 6 of the NPPF. I hope you're able to see the benefits of the scheme and that they outweigh the concerns raised in the committee report and grant planning permission accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Members, questions, clarifications, Mrs Jackson? Councillor Marks, thank you.
I think probably that wasn't the best choice of wording, but yeah, security.
Thank you. And secondly, obviously, security-wise, what you're saying is they want to work later at nights and stuff like that. What about the people? Is it a family member who lives in the next door property, the existing property, or are we about to open up a can of worms where we give carte blanche for somebody to live there and then be working late at night when there is a property already next door?
No, it's a family member. It's an elderly mother. So the house is occupied. The new dwelling is for the applicant and his young family. So he runs the business. And yeah, he operates the business. So it's for him to live with his family on site.
So at present, mum who lives next door or the elderly relative is the security?
If you can call an elderly relative the security, yeah.
I guess it depends how elderly.
Yeah, I've got one question. You say the company has amalgamated with another business. Are they going to make put the businesses all down Splash Droves? Is that what they're trying to do?
Yeah. So the other business was from Long Sutton, and our client has bought this other business. I think they did woodwork. So this woodwork element is now going to come to Plash Drove, and they're all going to be on site at Plash Drove.
So are they? So with that, it's got a building now. You can't really see how big the building is, but it seems a fair size. Are they looking to expand to put another building up?
Yeah. So planning permission exists for an extension and sort of jig of the farmyard, of the business yard area. They haven't done anything yet because they were waiting to see what was happening with the Long Sutton business. And also, this application has implications as to how the logistics work in terms of actually developing, because they don't want to sort of double do things, start digging things up and then, have to redo it.
I understand the relevance of what they're trying to do. Thank you very much for that. Anybody else at all before we let Mrs Jackson go? No? Oh, Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you, Ms Jackson. How many people are employed at this site, or how many are currently employed, and do you know, which you may not do, how many are likely to be employed when the extension and the whole scheme is up and running properly?
So at the moment there are 10 employees, including the applicant. My understanding is that one employee is coming over from Long Sutton, but I don't know what the implications will be sort of in the long term of continuing to develop.
Okay. Anybody else at all? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This brings us on for questions, clarifications to officers, members. Members, clarifications for officers? No. No, okay. So members, we're in debate. Who wants to kick this off? Thanks. Councillor Marks, then I'll come in after Councillor Marks. Thank you.
Thank you. My biggest concern is obviously we've got a property there that's already lived in. We have given previously for things like potato stores, farmers and stuff like that who need to be living on site. Is it 100% necessary for this business to be living on site? I don't know. And there is a property there already. Are we going to be opening up a can of worms regarding working times? You know, after 5, 6 o'clock at night, should anything happen to the elderly relative, somebody else move in there, are we going to have that sort of problem? So I've got a slight reservation regarding this one.
Okay, so I called this one in, I went and had a look at it, and I'm just a little bit worried about it, but not too much, because we are open for business in Fenland. We don't want to open up a can of worms, as Councillor has said, but Marks has said, but I feel that I can support this. They're buying another building, another firm. Yes, there is only another one employee, but they have got planning permission for, as we just heard, for putting an extension up on the building. Again, we are open for business, and as I've always said different times, the best security is living on site. That's for me. So we need to be consistent. We've done it before, as Councillor Marks says. Several occasions we've sat before this committee and we've passed them on that basis. So it looks to me, unless a rabbit's going to be pulled out of the hat, that I will go against officer's recommendation to agree to this. But I will sit and listen to what anybody else has said, as usual. Anybody else? Councillor Benny, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a business that's investing, and anybody who's going to invest in any business at the moment, I wish you well. You are going to need it for how things are turning out in the business world. It says one employee, but this business could relocate outside of Fenland. We could lose that business completely. And as much as there is an elderly lady on site for security, I think the risk to her is greater than the security that she could offer, actually. I think having additional family, as families get older, it's nice to look after your parents, it's nice to look after your elderly relatives, it provides care for them. And the best security, as Councillor Connor has just said, is having somebody live there. You can put cameras up, sensors, but it does not stop somebody walking in there. The best thing is they never know when you're going to come out of the house. And we have passed for security reasons in rural areas. We are a rural area. There is crime in rural areas. We all know it goes on. You've only got to look at the tractors that get sold through Meeple auction yard every week that end up in Eastern Europe and beyond when they get stolen. So there is definitely a risk of security. It's policy, a bit of a grey area. Does it do the harm? Is it building in the countryside? It's not in the middle of nowhere. It has purpose to it. I feel I could support this application. If somebody's going to invest, I think we should support them. That's what, as a council, we should be doing.
But if the council, just come in there, but if the council minded to approve this, we could put a condition on that the new dwelling is linked with the business. I don't know if that's acceptable to everybody around this table, but let's just float that idea about. Councillor Miffordin, then Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Chair. I think if it's possible to put a condition on, I think that would sway me to support this application, because I was on the fence about it. It's not, as stated in the report, it doesn't comply with, I think it was LP, go back to it now if I can find it. Because it's not agricultural or horticultural, it's not necessary to have a dwelling on site. It's a furniture manufacturing and assembly business. But if we can put a condition on it, I will be inclined to support. Thanks, Chair.
That's what I'm here for, to float conditions for people. Councillor Marks.
Yeah, I do feel sometimes conditioning with properties is a bit of a, at some point probably the business will be sold again or the people want to move. We had the same, to be fair, at Charmont Drive, where the properties were conditioned to the business building behind them, and then as soon as the business closed, you had to move. That was then dropped under appeal. That it was then a year before you had to move, and then appeal again. And the inspector found that it was a clause that we couldn't really go with. So now you don't have to run a business from Charmont Drive. You can still live in the workplace homes. So I am mindful of that. At the end of the day, Councillor Benny is right. I know of one business that's certainly gone from Spalding area to Spalding from Wisbech because they tried to expand. These people are expanding and bringing people into the area. I don't personally see the reason to condition it. I would support this application as it is without the condition.
Our logo says Fenland's open for business. I don't think we should be turning businesses down so they can reallocate to Lincolnshire or anywhere else. I think we've got the business here. It's employing 10 people. May well in the future, it's certainly going to employ another one. And who knows, it could be 10, 12, 2 or not at all in the next 5 years. But, and as Councillor Benny says, you're a very brave person now to expand in this how we are at the moment. I'm certain, and good luck to them if they do. So, I will support this application. Thank you. Sorry, you can.
Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to come in on the point of the condition. Obviously, that's come up quite recently. I think members need to be conscious, obviously, as we said, it's in theory, this application is contrary to policy. If members look to go against the policy, they need to explain and understand why. If members think that there is a particular need for this business to have a development on site, dwelling on site, I do think I'd advise that we should look to tie in some way, because in reality, as Councillor Benny says, market forces are changing at the moment. If the applicant wished, and I'm not saying for a second they do, but in theory, if we give them planning permission with no tied condition, they're able to build it out and sell that as a plot immediately. And obviously, all the material considerations that we've given weight to as a council when allowing it have fallen away, and we've not been able to enforce that. I'm very conscious of Councillor Marks's point around flexibility going forward, and what I would actually suggest is if members were to look to impose a condition would be that this should be tied to the property or an agricultural dwelling in the future. So we do get applications for agricultural dwellings, obviously, and there is a need for them, and that would allow some flexibility in the future if for some reason, as I said, there's 2 properties at the moment, there may be a time in the future where there's only one that's occupied and they wish to relocate, and this one may not necessarily be necessary for the business because of the other one, but by having the agricultural aspect added to that condition, it would still allow some flexibility to allow a future occupier to reside in the property in an area where we wouldn't necessarily be supporting dwelling, and there'll still be a benefit for it in the future. That would be my advice, members. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent idea. Thanks, Matt. So we're still in debate before I close it. Anybody else want to add to it? I think we've done it fairly well, I think. So I'm going to close the debate. Anything to add? Thinking, the brains are clicking.
Yeah, I will say something. Thank you, Chairman. I think firstly it's a reminder to members that security is not a material planning consideration. I think the agents are self-acknowledged. In any event, there is a dwelling on site. I think members are giving quite a bit of weight to the expansion development of the company. I would just point out that the planning permission that was, I think, granted for the new industrial building on site was granted in 2021. And I think the agent herself sort of said that hasn't happened to date. I think I think there's the agent sort of indicated that the company has actually bought another firm out at, I think it was Long Sutton or Sutton Bridge. And again, may have a plan to actually relocate. So I do have a concern that members seem to be giving a degree of, or quite significant weight to something which is, shall we say, somewhat tenuous at this point in time. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, David. I didn't feel that's what the agent said, that he was going to relocate his business to Sutton Bridge or Long Sutton, whichever the case may be. I thought the business was going to relocate to Splash road. That's what I thought. Councillor Marks?
Sorry, can I just come back on a point just raised with yourselves? Safety, obviously, is something now that was mentioned previously, and thinking about it, obviously this is a business, it's a woodworking business. It sounds like they're going to want to work out of hours as well. Is it part and parcel for safety for somebody else living on site? Does that help with the decision coming back?
Through you, Chairman, I can think of a number of woodworking businesses, a number of other businesses that have arguably got a safety element to them, that work 24/7 and which don't have any residential accommodation with them, any business on an industrial estate, for example. So I don't think that really carries a great deal of weight.
Okay, anything else to add, David? No? Matt? No? Okay, so I'm looking for a proposal on this application then. Proposal? Anybody want to do it before? We do really, but I'm just trying to save a bit of time really. Right, we'll say that then. So we're going looking for a proposal, firstly to go with officer recommendation to refuse it. Do I have a proposal on that to refuse it? No, so obviously failed, and I thought it might, so I'm looking for another proposal. Go on, Councillor Benny.
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we go against officer's recommendation on this one and approve this application. Officers to set conditions and to tie this to the business. My reasons are security, building in the open countryside. There is no purpose to build anywhere else because it needs to be here. That's LP3. The local character of the area. Well, everything changes. If you look at pictures from 1900 of Wisbech High Street, it's a lot different to how it is today. Everything changes. And if you've got a business that generates noise, which I assume a wood workshop would, this is the place to have that business. And if you need the security and safety, that is, to me, paramount. And therefore, the need outweighs the reasons for refusal.
Okay, so I've got a proposal from Councillor Benny to go against officer's recommendation to approve this. Councillor Benny is going to approve it, is proposed it. I shall second it. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal, please?
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
The application has been approved. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Tracy, Ranger again, to present application FYR 24/0339/0, agenda item number 8. So Tracy, when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So agenda item number 8 is an outline application for the erection of up to 2 dwellings with matters committed in respect to access, involving demolition of an existing outbuilding and part of the existing dwelling at 12 School Lane in Manea. 12 School Lane is a 2-storey white brick painted dwelling set on a large, well-landscaped plot. The application site forms part of number 12's large plot. The slide shows the site location plan and aerial photo. So the site is located to the north of School Lane, including the dwelling at number 12, the front of the site, and land to the left and to the right of the site. The host dwelling's rear garden does not form part of the application site. This slide is the existing and indicative plans. As mentioned, the plans are indicative and the only part committed at this stage is the access. The indicative plan does show 2 dwellings, one either side of the existing dwelling. The street scene shows the indicative scale of the dwellings, which would be greater scale than the existing cottage. The indicative plan shows that the front of the site would be dominated by car parking for the 3 properties, with all on-site turning occurring to the front of the existing dwelling. We move on to the site photos. So photo 1 And the top left is looking north along the front of the site and towards the existing dwelling, number 12 School Lane. Number 2 is looking west along the school lane and across the front of the site. And photo 3 is looking south along the driveway of number 12 and across the road. And number 4 is 12 School Lane, white brick painted cottage. So in summary, the application site encompasses the existing dwelling at number 12 School Lane and a large proportion of the existing plot. An outline application for up to 2 dwellings on site was previously refused in February of 2024. The proposal would mean a parking dominated frontage and would be necessary in order for sufficient space for parking and turning to be achieved. Given the constraints of the site, it is not considered that the submitted information adequately demonstrates that 2 additional dwellings could be accommodated without creating significant detrimental impact in respect of the character of the area and the residential amenity of existing and proposed dwellings. Accordingly, the officer recommendation is to refuse the application.
Yeah, thanks once again, Tracy. We have one set of speakers on this application. I'd now like to invite Mr. Jerome, he's the applicant, and Mr. Liam Lunn Towler, he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. You guys have got 5 minutes in which to make your presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm the agent, and beside me is Mr. Jerome, the applicant for the application. For this application, we are proposing 2 frontage plots within the lowest flood risk zone in the central and built-up form of Manea, located on the same road as the village hall. Located on the same road as the village hall, where a footpath serves the frontage to allow sustainable walking to the town services and facilities, including a approximate 25-minute walk to the train station. As mentioned by the officers, a previous application was refused based on an example site plan at the time. However, the principle of having dwellings on this land is supported by officers. Since the previous refusal, we have revisited the example site plan layout to reflect the officers' comments at the time. I highlight the site plan is an example because the application for you today is an outline, as mentioned, and we only come in the access. The dwelling design and the site layout, including the elevations, etc., of the properties, are subject to a later detailed application after this one, if approved. Regarding the proposed access, this new access would enhance the visibility for number 12 to improve highway safety, and this access is supported for this application by the highways officers. Therefore, this application provides opportunity for 2 additional family dwellings with large gardens within a popular location of Manea. We believe this application makes good use of land and would make a positive contribution to the local distinctiveness and the character of the area. An example of a recent application approved on School Lane is a backland dwelling to the rear of number 22C. Located on the same side of the road as our site, only 9 houses away towards the west of our site, as approved by committee against officers' recommendation 8 months ago in the May meeting. This application was also an outline and only committed access, and that reference was F/YR24/0194/0. So very similar to ours, we feel. In conclusion, we have worked with the Ploughs throughout this application where able, and we believe this application will make a positive addition to the area and support the existing services and facilities in Manea, including the village and train station, as already mentioned. We would happily take any questions you have on this application. Anything go forward?
Yeah, thank you very much, members. Questions, clarifications to Mr. Jerome or Mr. Lunn Towler, please. I'll take Councillor Sendicott first and then Councillor Marks.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation. There's been a lot of comments in the reports about drainage. How do you intend to resolve that issue?
For the foul drainage, this would connect to the mains sewer within the road. And the surface water, we would, again, this is an example at this stage, it's not committed. We would imagine this would go to soakaway crates within the gardens. Ideally, a good design would incorporate some sort of water butt to capture the water first so the family could use it on the garden, and that would run off to soakaway crates in that time. Failing that, if anything had to change, we would have to look at a different system if the soakaway system won't work. But again, that's something we'd happily accept and plan a condition to resolve appropriately.
Thank you.
Councillor Marks, thank you.
Thank you. As you know, this is my ward. I see this development. I've heard what you said. I honestly think that officers have actually got this right on this occasion. I am really concerned regarding parking. As it's put there, it's out of character for the rest of School Lane to start with. I can foresee a lot of issues. At Christmas, the other side of the road had vehicles parked along there. The dust cart already struggles to get down there. Regarding flooding, School Lane also has got flooding issues further down. And I think, personally, with the street scene, it goes against what the street scene is. How can you get over that?
Regarding the street scene, as last mentioned, that could be, again, the example elevations mimic certain details from it, but you could quite simply reduce the eaves height altogether, reduce the internal headroom at those points, make it still habitable and still in character with the existing property, which is so much lower. I think your internal is about 2.2 metres, so it's quite narrow as it is. So ideally, we would want to push up higher to improve the quality of the design for the properties, but again, that's something we'd have to look at. Again, or you could even step the elevations because of how the property to Mr. Jerome's land property is so much shorter than the rest of them adjacent to it. Equally, on the opposite side of the road, it copies a similar design where it's the same kind of height, eaves detail, brick details. So we feel that could be similar character to that. Regarding the flooding of School Lane, as you mentioned, you may perhaps know a bit more about this, but and as you have to deal with it as well. We'd have to try and explore the best way we can to admit that. The good thing is the site falls away from School Lane, so that we have no runoff from our land directly into it, because we'd have to climb up the hill. Equally, you could put channel drains along the frontage to capture that and put that into the soakways within the garden, so that again omits that problem. But I highlight we're trying to propose frontage plots. The parking, as you've mentioned, again, the example layout, that could be revised in different ways. You could have it so that the properties pull in and they're in tandem somehow. You could do it so that there's a carport directly attached to the property somehow, and that way they pull into that and it hides that and conceals it. I feel that there's many different ways you could explore revising this layout, and these comments are clearly known at this point in time that an agent would have to explore properly in the future. If it's not ourselves, it was someone else. We have tried to do it as most straightforward as we can. Again, as I mentioned, the backland property, that was trying to hide the vehicles at the back of it, which I know you prefer. The street scene dictates that and probably helps that. But we wouldn't want to bring our properties that close to the road, realistically. We want to try and keep it set back as possible to make a margin of the garden available.
Thank you. If you had one property, you would be able to go down the side without having to bring the properties closer to the road, though. Would you not agree?
I agree, and this application is for up to 2 dwellings. So in theory, they could just propose 1 dwelling. We have shown 2, admittedly. But if that was the conclusion that the second property could not be achieved because it needed for parking, then it would have to ultimately not be something to be used, and the garden would remain to Mr. Jerome's land, either one of the properties that doesn't succeed.
Thank you. And a question to Mr. Jerome. Is this going to be for your family home as well? Are you moving any members of your family in, or just for properties to let or sell?
I'm 75, my wife is 74, with mobility issues. There's 2/3 of an acre. when we first moved there, this was an ideal property for my wife, myself, and a young family. It's now getting too much work for us. We need to downsize, and this is one reason why we want to move away and give other people the same opportunity that we had 44 years ago. And can I just say that in 44 years that we've lived there, I've never known flooding on School Lane, and I use it every day. Sorry.
So, no, thank you. So basically, you'll be looking to sell this property once planning's given and move away. But following on from that, the school lane flooding down by the T turning further down, there is flooding, and believe me, because I've been there on numerous occasions with pumps.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Marks. Anybody else want to ask any questions? No? No, can't see any burning desire to. Thank you very much. Members, questions, clarifications to officers? No? So now I'd like to invite members to debate the item in respect to material considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So we're in debate, guys. Councillor Marks.
I think you can tell where I'm sitting with this one. And unfortunately, I think it's too much on a very small site. I don't think it fits into the street scene. There is flooding issues within Manea totally, let alone School Lane. And I honestly think there are going to be parking issues. 2 and 3 bedroom houses brings 2 and 3 cars. You've only got 6 vehicles there. There's going to be turning. There's going to be all sorts of issues. And I'm sorry, I just think officers have got this right, and I can't support this application.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. Anybody else at all? Councillor Senate Clough.
This has left me in a lot of doubt with regard to the differences of opinions over the flooding. But irrespective of that, I feel that, as other people have said, and as indicated in the report, there's going to be overshadowing. I don't think there's enough space. If there is flooding, I think it's just going to add the density of those 3. And I know it says up to 2, but, we have to think about a possibility of 3 properties there, and I think it's going to add to the flooding and drainage issues.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else at all? Still in debate? Nobody can't. I'm going to close the debate now. Oh, Councillor Mifferton, just on the spur. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the report, many parish council are objecting due to they say the block paving is not permeable, which obviously is going to lead to discharge of water not possible, probably going to run off onto the street, and then inadequate drainage provision and insufficient parking. 2 3-bed houses. Even from the outline plan information that outline diagram we can see there, that does look overcrowded. The turning area, I don't think that is that is doable. So I'm not going to support this, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to close the debate now. Officers, have you got anything to add to this? No, thank you. So, do I have a proposer to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application? Councillor Marks, I'll take you first, Councillor Marks.
I'm happy to propose we go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application.
Councillor French is going to second it. So I've got a proposal to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application, proposed by Councillor Marks, seconded by Councillor French. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal, please?
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
Yeah, so application's been refused. I think we'll do one more, then we'll have a cup of tea. So do you want to stop now? I always take notes of you. Do another one. Okay, I'll do another one then. Okay? So now, without further ado, I'll hand over again to Tracy, Ranger, to present application FYR 24/0813/0, agenda item number 9. So, Tracy, please, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So agenda item number 9 is an outline application again for the erection of one self-build dwelling with all matters reserved. So this slide shows the FDC site location plan and aerial photo. The site would be accessed along an existing track off of Sutton Road. Location plan shows new development to the north and east of the site, which is not shown on the aerial photo as some of the houses are still under construction. The aerial photo accurately shows that the site is currently grass with some trees. It is considered paddock land. There are 2 wooden shed-like structures centrally located within the paddock. The slide shows the submitted location and site plan. No other indicative plans were submitted with the application. And moving on to the site photos. So photo 1, the top left, looking north along Sutton Road across the front of the access to the site. Photo 2 shows the access to the site between the 2 dwellings. And photo 3, the wooden structures on the site can just be seen. Photo 4 shows the paddock with new development to the north of the site. And in summary, the application seeks outline permission for the erection of one dwelling on site with all matters reserved. The site is located along Sutton Road, Leverington. However, the site is physically considered part of Wisbech given the continuation of built development between the site and the centre of Wisbech itself. The proposal fails the sequential test and is therefore contrary to policy LP14 and must be recommended for refusal.
Yep, thank you very much once again. We have one set of speakers on this application. I'd now like to invite David Boyce, he's the applicant, and Shana Jackson, of course, she's the agent, to make their presentation to the committee. Obviously, as you well know, you've got 5 minutes between you.
Hello again. I just want to say this is Mr. Boyce, he's the landowner. So I'm going to speak first as the agent and then he'll be here just to clarify some matters for you. So as you've just heard, this application is for a single self-build dwelling. The proposal has been recommended for refusal as it's been stated that the sequential test has not passed due to there being other sites available within Wisbech. However, I would like to highlight to you that the site address is in Leverington. And therefore, it made sense for us to carry out the sequential test within the area of Leverington. The sequential test we carried out demonstrates that there are no other sites available for development within Leverington, and therefore it's passed. It goes on to demonstrate that the site is technically safe from flooding and that it presents a community benefit, and as such the exception test is also passed, and there is no issue in respect of flood risk. In paragraph 10.1 of the committee report, it clearly states that the development is acceptable with no adverse impact on character or amenity. The proposal simply fails because it's considered that there are other sites available within Wisbech which are at lower risk of flooding. And this is despite the address being within Leverington and Leverington Parish Council being consulted. It seems to me that there are no issues with this proposal and that it's been recommended for refusal purely on an administrative error. I would therefore respectfully request that the reason for refusal is overturned and that planning permission is granted accordingly. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm David Boyce. I'm a 5th generation farmer locally who bought the land originally to retire 2 horses onto. When the building commenced around the site, obviously this caused a lot of distress to my horses and they died. The site was obviously had no other use for it. I farm in Outwell, which is just within the period where I can drive a tractor between the two, but being a small site, not very viable for farming itself outside of where I live. I consulted the Fenland Council Town Plan, which said that Leverington Parish Council, as indicated on LP 5602 in the town plan, the Fenland District Council Plan, so it's Leverington Parish Council. So I consulted with the Leverington Parish Council, who gave me their comments and thoughts around this. They received the correspondence both initially and the follow-up one regarding this particular referral, because they're the statutory consultee for this and not Wisbech, has been outlined by the officers. And the Boundary Commission clearly show that Leverington Parish Council is where my land sits within. The purchaser, Mr. Astrup, who's the applicant, is looking to build a house with equestrian facilities upon it. Obviously, you haven't had that yet because we haven't got that far. With the idea of it maintaining some of the essence of the site, whereas developing it for its best possible use. If the council were looking to decline this today, I would ask what you would consider on this site, as you've already developed around it. It sits within your planning framework and it sits within the boundary of Leverington.
Okay, thank you very much, but I've got to say this, we're determining this application, and it wouldn't be right and proper to ask any other councillors sitting in this room here what they would consider. It's up to you to go back. If it is refused, it's up to you to go back with the agent to put another application in. So let's be clear on that. But thank you very much indeed for that. Members, questions, clarifications? Councillor French.
Shanna, you did say at the start of your presentation a community benefit. What did you mean by community benefit?
So in terms of a community benefit, it would be providing housing within a sustainable location. So it's better to concentrate new housing in built-up areas rather than spreading out to the countryside.
Councillor Senate Clough.
Hello again. Hi. Why wasn't there a drawing submitted with it?
I can't honestly answer that. I would assume there should have been, but I mean, on the basis that it was made valid, there's enough there for the application to be determined.
Okay.
I was told as the owner that the reason it was sorry.
Just start again, will you please?
Sorry, I'm not obviously au fait with this. I was told as the owner the reason that wasn't one put was if it was under the development of the site was the issue, and that would be the reason for refusal. And obviously a completely separate drawing and schematic would have to be brought back. Therefore, because it's only for one development, they've not submitted a picture with it.
Okay, because obviously it's very difficult, and I'm looking at Leverington Parish Council's comments that they were unable to comment on it because they had nothing to go on. They had no visual of what it will look like or anything. So I'm a bit perplexed by that.
I think perhaps you were misadvised. I think perhaps that's the word we're looking for. Who knows? Anyway. Councillor Miffordon.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just clarify? Did you say this lies in Wisbech or Leverington? Just want to be clear on that.
As far as the Boundary Commission lines are, it says Leverington. Leverington Parish, I actually have the email here that came from a Tracy Ranger. I don't know who that is, but they've actually consulted Leverington Parish Council as a constitutory consultee as part of the process for planning on both occasions, both on the original and obviously on this referral. So it's fairly outlined to me as a parishioner that it's within Leverington, and within the planning framework it actually states it's Leverington, and that's the Fenland District Council plan.
Thank you.
Absolutely right. Anybody else at all before we let these gentlemen, these guys go? No? Thank you very much. So, members, questions, clarifications to officers, members? Oh, sorry, Councillor Senate Clough.
So, with regard to this apparent conflict over the boundaries, can you elaborate on that? As you know, in terms of obviously it's in Leverington, but it was put forward as being in Wisbech for purposes of the sequential test. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Thank you through you, Chairman. So yes, the site clearly is in Leverington Parish, but I think when one actually looks at the built form of Wisbech, this site is clearly part of the built form of Wisbech. It's a continuation of the town of Wisbech as you go up Sutton Road. There's a considerable gap between this site and Leverington Village, and members may recall, I think it was only probably a few months ago, a site on the opposite side of Sutton Road that was considered in the same manner as being a part of the built form of Wisbech, and members made a decision on that basis. In respect of the flood risk assessment and the issue of the sequential test, I'm not aware that a sequential test has been submitted in respect of Leverington, and indeed the flood risk assessment that was submitted as part of the application in the section talking about the sequential test references northern and western parts of Wisbech, undeveloped areas of land to the north and southwest of the town, predominantly flood zones 2 and 3. Due to the suitability and availability of sites in flood zone land, the council has been obliged to consider areas which fall within flood zones 2 and 3. So actually the flood risk assessment that's been submitted in respect to the sequential test does seem to actually make reference more to Wisbech than it does to Leverington, just for clarity.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, Councillor French, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, going back to no drawings, how did that get to where it is today through validation without a drawing? That's the first question. Having listened to what, do you want to answer that one first?
Yeah, thank you through, John. I'll answer part one, if I may. I mean, ultimately, this is an outline application, so there is no requirement necessarily to submit indicative elevation drawings. Obviously, it's helpful if we do get those, but there is no requirement for that.
So the next part of this, having just listened to what you said, David, there's no sequential test submitted. So as far as I'm concerned, this is an incomplete application and should be refused.
Okay. Anybody else at all for officers? No? So now what I'm going to say, now I'd like to invite members to debate the item in respect of material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hands.
Incomplete application, Mr. Chairman.
Anyway, that we're in debate. Your comments entirely. Anything else, anybody else want to add to the debate before we close it? Councillor French obviously wants to go for a cup of tea. No, that's it then. So, right, nothing, officers after that one, there's nothing to say, is there? So, do I have a proposal to go with officer recommendation to refuse planning permission? Councillor French. Have you got a second to Councillor French? Councillor Senate Clough. So we've got a proposal to go with officer recommendation to refuse this application, proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Senate Clough. All those in favour of that?
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
That application has been refused. Thank you, Joe. So now we'll break at 22:03, and can we be back in at least only 15 minutes, please? Earlier if we can. Thank you. 10 minutes if you like. Thank you. Yep, thank you members for coming back quickly. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Gavin Taylor, Interim Principal Planning Officer, to present application F/YR24/0211/0, agenda item number 10. So Gavin, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Happy New Year. Agenda item 10 is an application in outline with only access committed for up to 19 dwellings involving a culvert for the drain to accommodate the access, located at north of 35 Whittlesea Road, March. I'd just like to bring members' attention to the update report circulated yesterday, just in respect of some updated plans and obviously the conclusions of those. If we just get on to the location and aerial though for now. So the site is located to the northwest of the core of March. You can see the A141 over to the east of it, where it leads up to the Peas Hill roundabout. It comprises about 0.8 of a hectare of currently open land. There aren't really any discernible features. There's a grouping of trees on the northern edge of the site that have recently been removed. The site is notably lower, however, than the adjacent highway, with an average of around about 1 metre to 1.2 metres across the site, lower than the adjacent highway. There's a drain, an open drain, that runs along the western boundary, curving up on the northwest of the site. The site is identified as being within flood zone 3, with also some surface water drainage mapping denoting medium and high risk areas of surface water issues. There's a dwelling on the northeastern, as you can see, and the southern boundary of the site. Other than that, the site is open. So this plan just shows the site edge red relative to the sort of the wider area of settlement of sort of North March, I would say. This is an indicative site plan, as I said, outline application with only access committed, but this site plan attempts to sort of show how the 19 dwellings could be arranged on the site. As you can see, access is taken directly from Whittlesea Road at the southwest corner of the site. It leads into the site via a main spine road that runs up through the centre, with dwellings fronting it on either side. There's a private drive serving a couple of dwellings right at the north corner of the site there. As you can see, houses on the western side are set back. That area hatched in blue is a drainage easement, IDB drainage easement. So therefore, obviously development is prohibited in that location. There's a proposal to connect up to the existing footpath network at the north-east corner of the site. That is proposed to be widened as well, where it leads then onto Peas Hill roundabout crossing. There are concerns, as noted in the report, in terms of the arrangement of dwellings here, in terms of how they respond to the wider area, with dwellings predominantly frontage onto the highway. These obviously are fronting onto a main spine road, and therefore those western dwellings are particularly of concern given how they sort of present to the highway, and also with land levels as well. The indicative layout has been amended during the course of the application, and obviously that latest layout design is included in that update report, albeit it's really just denoting some replacement trees that are proposed on the northern corner of the site. So the access, which is committed, shows a design that leads straight onto Whittlesea Road, as denoted there. Highways have confirmed that they're satisfied that it achieves suitable visibility and tracking, as you can see on that right-hand picture there. There is a culvert required, as I said, that drain that runs along that western boundary, and that's denoted on the plan, which you can see at the bottom left there. Specific details of that are yet to be agreed, and Highways have agreed to a sort of a condition wording which would secure that final detail to ensure it meets with their standards. Due to the level differences, as I noted earlier on the site, it's important that the gradient of that access as it leads down into the site also complies with highway standards, and they've set out their requirements in that regard. This plan shows the footway widening that's been required and requested by a local highway authority, which shows a section of widening, as you can see, sort of northwest of the Peas Hill roundabout, and there's also some tactile paving, a crossing point that's proposed where the site, the footpath, meets the A141 at that Peas Hill roundabout junction as well. That's all been agreed in principle with the local highway authority. Obviously, it's subject to final section 278 sign-off. This is the flood mapping that was submitted with the flood risk assessment. So as you can see, the map on the northeast, the top left, is rivers and seas flooding. It denotes a medium risk of flooding. However, that does take into account flood defences, which is sort of set out in the report. The sequential test, for example, should not take into account flood defences, and therefore basic standard mapping is that site sits in flood zone 3. The plan at the bottom there is the surface water flood mapping, which shows areas of low, medium and high risks of flooding. The plans nonetheless don't take into account climate change. This is the culvert detail, as I said, subject to sort of final agreement and sort of positioning, etc., but obviously just shows how that's proposed to be arranged. And just sort of taking you through some photos. So top left photo is sort of the northeastern corner of the site. As you can see, those stumps that have been recently removed, that grouping of trees. And then the top right photo just pans across the site. Bottom left is where the access is proposed to go. And then the bottom right shows that house on the southern boundary there, and you can sort of see the land level differences there. So the application seeks outline planning permission for up to 19 dwellings with access committed. Obviously there are some benefits noted in terms of additional stock of private housing. However, it's generally considered to be unsustainably linked by virtue of that crossing point at Pease Hill roundabout, and generally not a good place to grow our housing stock in the March area, as it will place heavy reliance on private motor car for basic journeys and it proves problematic to cross that, particularly sort of school runs, basic shopping runs, etc., if going by bicycle or foot. The proposal also relies on a layout which would appear discordant to the pattern of housing development in the area, and therefore fails to set out how that quantum of development could be appropriately laid out without resulting in that character harm. In addition, the site lies in an area of high to medium risk of flooding without sufficient justification, therefore placing people and property at an unwarranted risk of flooding. In addition to that, the application is supported by a viability appraisal which sets out that it's unable to afford any affordable housing on the site, and only that minimal financial contribution of £2,000 a dwelling towards mitigating community infrastructure impacts, and therefore the public benefits of this scheme are considered to be very limited. So in essence, there are significant conflicts with development plan policies, and in applying the planning balance, it's considered that the modest benefits of securing a small number of market homes don't outweigh the significant policy conflicts and the associated disbenefits as addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. Surprisingly, we've got no speakers on this application, on such an important application, but we are where we are. So members, questions to officers? Councillor French.
First off, I don't know where they got this map from. They've got Old Wisbech Road going right through a dwelling. I don't think there's ever been a road called Old Wisbech Road. I live around the corner from this, so I know the site quite well. And interestingly enough, the amount of people supporting that and where they live is very interesting. But that's a different story. It is a site that's been developed before. The Horse and Jockey pub used to be there. When I first moved here, it was tilting to its side and it was removed, I think, late 95. The site is primed for development, but not at this scale. If that was 2 or 3 nice the brain's gone now, executive houses, that would be fine. I'm sure most of you know this site. It is on a ridiculous blind corner, as you can see as you come round. The access, obviously, there's a very, very deep ditch there, which is probably 6 or 7 foot. So there's no problem with getting rid of surface water. But the whole scheme, I think, is overdevelopment. It's in a 60-mile-an-hour zone. What else is there? And the actual state of the road, I'm surprised that highways, should be ashamed of themselves, the state of that road. I was around there the other day and it's absolutely appalling. It's right for development, but not for 19 dwellings. And as I asked the question at first application, 19 dwellings, no infrastructure, no section 106s, so who's going to pay for the doctors, dentists, and etc., etc.? So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's any questions I can ask because the officers. I'm going to say officers have got this right. It wants something doing to it, but I think it's a shame that they cut down so many of these trees. But to be fair, some of these trees were self-saplings. They weren't planted, they were self-seeded. But officers have got this one right.
So anybody hasn't got any questions for officers after this? Yeah. Excused this time. Anybody got any questions for officers? No? Nobody? No. So, invite members to debate the item in respect to material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please do so. Councillor French has had her go. So anybody else want to add to it? Yeah, I think she has said something. I think I agree 100% what she says, really. So, did you want to speak, Councillor Penny?
Oh, I'll have a word or two. Keep them short for Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think officers...
Keep her in a job.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Penny, off you.
I think officers got this one right. I don't think this is right. It's not where you'd want to concentrate your development for March. And truthfully, unless anybody else has got anything to say, I think we should go to a vote on this one.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to the debate? I think we know where this one's going. Officers closing the debate. Officers, no. Okay, so I'm looking for a proposal. Go with officer recommendation to refuse this application. Who wants? Councillor Miffordin, do you want to do it? Have we got a seconder on this one? Councillor Senate Clough. Okay, so we've got a proposal to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this. Proposed by Councillor Miffordin, second by Councillor Senate Clough. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal, please?
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
Thank you. That application has been refused. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Gavin Taylor to present application F/YR24/0557F, agenda item number 11. So Gavin, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Agenda item 11 is a retrospective application to erect a hay store, 1.5 metre high well mesh fencing and 1.8 metre high close boarded fencing at land south of Swan Cottage, Benwick Road, via Dykemore Drove in Doddington. So just looking at the site, it sits sort of southwest of Doddington. It's located on the eastern side of Dykemore Drove. To the northeast well, to the north really is sort of Benwick Road, as you can see, which runs along there, with a couple of dwellings sitting either side of Dykemore Drove. The area is generally rural in character, with open countryside extending in all directions. You can see that site is a sort of a wedge-shaped parcel of land there. So the site plan, as you can see, the sort of the grey rectangle is the hay store building. There's an area of hard standing in front of it. Other than that, it's sort of green. There is fencing on either side. So on the eastern side is the open sort of weld mesh fencing. On the western side, immediately adjacent to Dykemore Drove, described as Dykemore Road there, is the 1.8 metre high continuous close board fencing. The applicant has advised that the hay store is to be used for feeding horses on opposite field. So just looking at the elevations, this is the hay store. As you can see, fairly sort of simple in structure. It's understood to be sort of metal clad in a sort of smooth sort of sheeting. This is it situated relative to those dwellings to the north, as you can see there. And these are the photos from the street scene. So basically the top photographs show it sort of immediately views north towards Benwick Road. As you can see, the fencing immediately adjacent to the highway, and then that hay store set behind it. Bottom left is a sort of a view set back a bit further, and then the bottom right photo is a photograph sort of over the fence, just to show that weld mesh fencing there. This was the street scene view taken about 2 or 3 years ago, prior to that fencing going up, and you can see that tree in the foreground there, which you can see sits immediately behind that hay store. So just to give you an idea of how that appeared in the street scene previously. So again, this application is retrospective in that it's already been constructed, as you can see from the photos. It's considered that the sort of rural undeveloped surroundings, that the development itself detracts from that. Both the hay store and the close boarded fencing create significant incongruous features within that street scene, and sort of diminish that rural open countryside aesthetic without sufficient justification. Whilst the principle of sort of development in rural locations to support various rural sort of enterprises and pursuits is supported, in this case the physical appearance of the development fails to achieve high standards expected. It's considered that alternative approaches to achieve similar outcomes could be achieved with more sympathetic designs. As such, the application is considered to be contrary to LP 16 and is recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Liam Taylor. He's the agent to make his presentation in committee. 5 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak again today for this application as agent. This application proposes to remove an existing metal shed for the hay store, as you can see on the screen, associated boundary treatment. The hay stored in the building is for the applicant's horse, just in the opposite field, near very just opposite. This application has received no neighbourhood objections. There is no technical consultee objection to this, and Doddington Parish Council support the application. The hay store is screened by existing mature trees to the north of the site to reduce visibility from Swan Cottage at the new replacement just north of that, and thus visibility is from Doakmore Drove. Doakmore Drove is primarily used to access farming land as to provide a link between Benwick Road and Primrose Hill. Therefore, a hay store appears appropriate in this location. Regarding the proposed boundary treatment with this application, lining the west of the site, opposite Doakmore Drove, is a 1.8 metre high close board fence. The reason for the fence appearance is to reduce visibility from the road in order to increase the privacy and security of the applicant's land. The need to reduce the visibility is because of, as I mentioned, the screening from Swan Cottage, which reduces the overall continuous visual monitoring of the land. Just to keep it very short and sweet, really, in conclusion, this application is supported by the Parish Council, and the proposed development is considered suitable in this location, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have regarding this application.
Yeah, thank you, Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Members, questions, clarifications at all? Councillor Marks.
Thank you. Yeah, I personally don't see an issue with this. However, I can see it is a bit stark. Go down the road a bit further, you come to other buildings, metal constructed buildings that are painted black. There is also further down a chicken farm as well, which has low buildings. It is very stark. Would the applicant be prepared to actually sort of paint it black, or at least take the colouring out of the shed?
Yes, the applicant did mention beforehand. I don't want to raise it as to something that you add in something to the application during it, but the applicant did raise that they are very much willing to paint it green to blend in with the landscape. They pretty much can get hold of the material and have it ready. So yes, they're willing to explore that if members feel that's appropriate, and we can happily respond to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I think, like Councillor Marks, does stand in your face a bit. I see a bit. Is that a van in the left-hand side, number one? Yeah, there's a vehicle in there, isn't it? Yeah. Caravan or something, vehicle, high-sided vehicle, isn't it? Yeah, well, it's not a hay store then, is it? It's a vehicle store. But so we need to make sure, if this application is successful, it is a hay store. Doddington and Maid Parish Council, you're absolutely right. They vote in favour of this happening, but we need to make sure that it is just a hay store if it's successful here today, and it's not, as they pointed out, living quarters or any more caravans on there. It is actually what it is. So yes, Councillor Mark's absolutely right. It does need toning down somewhat, and probably some more trees, I think, to help the street scene a bit, so it doesn't look so much in your face, to be honest. But so.
Just to follow on from your question, if you feel it more appropriate, we could add an enhancement scheme to conditions, so then that fulfills that kind of question. Would that help or assist? Again, something to help support the application.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously there'll be some debate, and obviously other people have exercised some views on it, won't they? But if it does seem to be that, I would want some extra conditions put on there if it was successful. Most certainly I would. Thank you. Anybody else at all? No, thank you very much. Members, questions to officers? Councillor Marks, thank you.
I think my question to yourselves as well, if this was painted, it does look very stark as it is, and the fence also, which is a new fence which will weather over time, but the building certainly won't. Should the building be sort of like toned down with black or a green colour, would that be more acceptable to planning?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. So obviously there are two issues here. One is the building itself and the sort of the low quality materials that's been used. The second is that fence. That fence sits right on the highway, and it's a continuous screen of fencing which is incongruous to the countryside. Whether you paint that green or leave it natural, it's still going to be a continuous screen of fencing along that highway edge, which is not in keeping with the area. As I say, there are different fences that could be used that may be more appropriate in the rural context of that location. Indeed, we see a lot of agricultural areas where they use sort of post and rail fencing, for example. So whilst painting may change the appearance of it, you're not going to overcome that stark screening that continuous close-boarded fencing achieves. But obviously painting the building may mute it slightly.
Okay. Anybody else at all? No. Councillor Benny, thank you. Just on time.
No. I drive past this 2 or 3 times a week. I think the fence was down the other side, on the field side, the other day. I think the wind won, fence nil. And I do see what Gavin says about that being very, very close to the road. In terms of, is it the right kind of fence to have there? If it's going to keep blowing over and coming down, then maybe something a little bit better would be better there. It is quite stark. I came here today with an open mind on this one, but I do see from listening to what Gavin said about the fence, and that is a long. It's a one-track road when you come up to Doddington Road. And if you're along that with that fence, it does restrict the passing a little bit as well. I don't know what members of officers, have you got any details of the width of the road in terms of passing? Because where that was fairly open before, if you met someone, it does make a slight difference to the width of passing somebody.
Metre from the edge of the road, is it? The fence?
Through you, Chair, I can find out the width of the road if you just give me a moment, if that's okay. Yeah, through you, Chair, I've got about 4.2, probably, I mean, it varies a little bit, but I've got about 4.2, probably its widest point. It was about 3.9 at one point. So.
Yeah, would you like to carry on?
No, like I say, I'm quite interested in the debate where this goes.
So we're still in questions to officers at the moment. Don't see any. So I'm going to close that. So I'm going to open up the...
can we just have clarification then? We are happy though that the fence is on their boundary and it's not encroached onto the highway or onto the county council land at all?
Well, we don't have comments from the County Council Highway Authority on this application. Obviously, the applicant has made a declaration that that land is theirs. I don't believe they've served notice on the local highway authority to indicate that they are encroaching on their land. We have to take that on face value, that's the case. Obviously, if it does encroach on highway land and highways have got an issue with that, then they've got enforcement powers to seek rectification in that regard if they consider it's causing a problem for them in highway terms. But otherwise, the applicant has sort of indicated in their submission that that is within their ownership and their control. So one would have to assume it is.
So if the applicant put literally post and rail along there in exactly the same place, we'd still have the same passing issue, but it could still go on the same boundary.
Theoretically, if highways have no issue, in terms of it encroaching on their land, from a planning point of view, if that were swapped over for post and rail fencing, they could do that by the sounds of things.
Thank you.
You can, Councillor Manea.
Yeah. I mean, I go through Dykemore Drive as well, because I go to Bennett quite a bit. And that is a long fence. And as much as there is a stop sign at the top and you have to stop and look to see what's coming, does that in any way block the view? I know obviously highways haven't come back with an objection of it. But if you're coming up to a junction and you're driving properly, you should be looking to see if there's anything coming. It's not the best of junction at the end of the road. If we were looking at visibility displays coming out, we would be looking onto Doddington Road. But does that in any way affect the safety of the highway in any way, Gavin? With not being able to, by being so shielded along the side of the road? I mean, where I used to live, I couldn't have a fence higher than a metre because it was on a corner, and this is on a straight road, but there was a limit as to how high it's to keep the visibility there. Does that have any bearing on this?
Well, so under permitted development rights, theoretically, you could erect a fence along there, well, not adjacent to the highway, but the highways would generally ask for a height of 0.6 metres for a fence or some sort of visibility to be maintained. Obviously, yes, if you're coming out of that site there, you would expect I'm assuming that's an unrestricted road, you would expect sort of the standards to be met there. We don't have comments from highways, so we don't have a highway objection, so to speak. Certainly officers haven't raised that as an objection, but that's a consideration for members. But certainly I would say that you would probably struggle to achieve what would be the standard visibility exiting from the site onto that highway there, given the close-bordered nature of that fence. Perhaps a more open type of fencing may improve that, but again, we don't really have comments from highways to be able to confirm that one way or the other, or any sort of assessment that's been undertaken in that regard.
Carry on.
I mean, obviously highways haven't commented, but they don't always, or you get someone who does a desktop survey. It's not like we're building houses in the middle of an estate where they would probably look a little bit harder at it. Maybe not, I don't know, I don't want to criticise highways, but we do get desktop surveys turn up here where things haven't really been given the full look of that maybe they should have. Do we have any idea whether this is a desktop survey or whether it's just, does it come back just as with the answers that it does?
Well, we don't actually have any kind of assessment of the highway impact of this development. So hence why the only objection we've raised is on visual harm. Obviously that's what's in front of us today. In order to sort of get a steer from highway as to whether or not that's acceptable or not, we'd have to go back to them and ask them for comments. But, yeah.
Carry on, Matt.
Yeah, so through you, Chairman, just sort of extending what was just said by Gavin. If members do have concerns about this, we could look to defer the item and get highways comments, so that members are comfortable with determining the application. If this is an issue that members have and don't feel that the report fully deals with it, we can do that for you. Thank you, Chairman.
Coming in, I think safety is an issue. It is, I mean, it's in my patch. at County Council, at Fenland District Council and County Council, and I know this, obviously, this Doddington drove really well, and Bennett Road too. So I think for me it is an issue, and I would like this deferred for more information, because obviously it's a concern to Councillor Benny and Councillor Marks as well, and we can get some more information on it. It's there already, so, you know, and leaving it for another month, in my opinion, won't make a drop of difference, but I'm in favour of deferment. Councillor Marks?
I certainly concur. I think deferment would be the sensible thing. What I do think, though, is could the agent also be made aware, or the applicant at least, to see when it comes back to us, if there is an issue, as to what they can do to mitigate that issue. If they're not prepared to, then fine, you know, then we take it on face value. However, you know, we are in a situation now where hopefully all parties can work together, and when it comes back to us, at least we have a highway view, and if highways have asked for something to be done, the agent has, and the applicant has some one way or another, has achieved what is required. And equally, I would ask also some sort of confirmation as well that they are happy to either paint or do whatever with the building, and also the fence itself.
That's the unfortunate part with a retrospective application. It's already there before we get a comment, but we all know we have to give it the same weight as a new application. So, yeah, okay. Councillor French, sorry.
Yeah, just looking at this, the application must be determined by the 17th of January, so we're going to be out of time if it's deferred.
I think Matt can come in there.
Through you, Chairman, we can ask for another extension of time. Highway safety is a material consideration. You know, obviously, if the applicant appeals on non-determination, obviously, we would just flag up. Obviously, major concern is a new one in relation to highway safety, but at the end of the day, the application is recommended for refusal. So, if we stood by that appeal, we would still have to end up in a situation. So, as they go, it's the lower risk one, I would say.
We've got the applicant here.
We need it in writing either way, so it's
sorry.
We need it in writing, so
yeah. So I'm just going to take an unprecedented step here. So could we? You've heard what the comments are to the committee. If you'd just like to just come back up here, just for a couple of minutes, and you've heard what the committee says. They're not happy with the fence, not happy with probably the display and the visibility from Bennett Road. Would you be happy? I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I don't expect you to go back on your word at all, if it's in the affirmative, that you're going to give this an extra time so we can go back to highways to see what can be done, if anything.
Yes, Chairman, we're happy to agree to an EOT that we need to get highways comments. Yes, we're very happy to work with plan officers, and yes, happy to agree to painting, etc., just to bring the scheme better. And if there is an issue of highways, again, address that with appropriate mitigation. So yes.
Of course, thank you for that. Of course, obviously they'll need it in writing. You know the procedure. Obviously that you'll agree to an extension of time, and I'm sure the planning committee will be happy to bring this back at the soonest available opportunity and make their decision accordingly. Okay, that's super. Thank you for that. I think we've done questions to officers now, so I'm looking to debate the application, please. Anybody want to debate it? Is there anything to debate? I think we've done it all. Anybody just quickly? Oh, Councillor Miff.
Yeah, just want to add, you know, can we just be clear on the actual use of that? Yeah. Because the fact that it has a high top box fan or caravan, whatever it is in there, as well as the hay, is that a dual use then? Is it multiple use, or is it just for hay? How can we get that clarified?
I mean, it looks to me, to be truthful, it looks to me, obviously they put it for a hay store and they've got a storage of van. And to me, that's obviously breaking the use of it already, shouldn't it? I mean, but we are where we are, I suppose. But Councillor Marks?
Obviously, I don't know the applicant. I don't know, but bear in mind also you've got a hay merchant in Doddington who's got exactly the same, stores a van in a post barn exactly the same as that. So it may be something to do with his business or whatever that's part and parcel if he sells hay. So we've got to be careful that we're trying to surmise stuff that we don't really know the answer to. There is agricultural equipment, bottom right-hand side, but I would be very careful to say it's being used as a van storage for anything apart from to do with his business or his requirements.
Yeah, but the agricultural machinery on the right-hand side is a farm owned by, obviously, Jolly's or somebody like, I think Jolly's Land's probably where that is.
That's within the yard.
Is it? Oh yeah, I can see the post now, you're absolutely right.
So
Yeah. I know we can't surmise things, but anyway, that's where we are. So anybody want to add to this debate? No? Right, thank you. Officer, you got anything to say on it? No? So I'm looking for to go with officer's recommendation. No, we don't want to defer it. We've got to go with that first, haven't we? Then we can propose to defer it, can't we? Yeah? Yeah. So I'm looking proposal to go against officer's recommendation to refuse this application to go with them. Anybody got any another proposal for that? To go against, to go with officer's recommendation to refuse? No? So I haven't got things. So I'm looking for another recommendation, that is to defer, obviously. Councillor, what are you, Marks?
To defer this for further information from Highways and also the applicant as well.
Okay, we've got a seconder for that. Councillor French. So we've got a proposal to defer this application proposed by Councillor Marks, seconded by Councillor French. Can I have a show of hands on that?
That's a unanimous decision to defer.
Thank you. That application has been deferred. Thank you very much. So now I'd like to I'd like to hand over to Gavin to present application F/YR 24/07830, agenda item number 12. So when you're ready, Gavin, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So agenda item 12 is an outline application with all matters reserved for the development of up to 2 dwellings. So the site is located north of Chatteris, comprises 2 parcels of land. As you can see, they're joined via a single sort of point of access. They sit either side of that access track. That track itself leads to Highfield Lodge, as you can see set there. Doddington Road runs along the eastern site boundaries. You can see north to south there, where the access joins onto. Site's generally rural in character. The plots are enclosed currently with low post and rail fencing. Site is located in flood zone 1. This is the indicative site plan. As I say, it's outlined with all matters reserved, but nonetheless the application is supported by a plan that indicates how the dwellings could be arranged on the site. As you can see there, the dwellings are accessed via that main point of access to Highfield Lodge, where it spurs off to each dwelling. The gardens obviously are set to the rear, so the dwellings essentially front onto the highway there. You'll note from the plan also to the south of the application site, you can just see the outline approval indicatively drawn there for 6 dwellings immediately south of that application site. And obviously there are further permissions that extend beyond that down to Willie Terrace further south. Just to note that the application in outline for 6 dwellings that you can see there, we don't actually have yet any further applications for that yet, albeit I think that was only approved last year or 2023. In terms of site photographs, this is the site access as you go out of Chatteris, basically along Doddington Road, you can see. Again, as you head towards Chatteris there, that's the point of access to Highfield Lodge. And this is obviously the main access point that leads up to Highfield Lodge, as you can see, with sort of the paddocks either side, enclosing that post and rail fencing with a bit of hedgerow as well, as you can see. So it's an outline application for all matters reserved for up to 2 dwellings. It's considered the site sits in the open countryside outside of the existing built form of Chatteris. It's more closely linked to undeveloped rural land. Given those existing characteristics of that site, it's considered that the proposal would change the character of the area to its detriment, denuding the rural character of that area. in addition, the sort of introduction of 2 dwellings in a linear orientation would basically be a negative impact to that sort of rural qualities of the area, and sort of representing urban sprawl stretching further away from the core of Chatteris, and therefore sort of less sustainably linked as you extend beyond. So therefore it's contrary to policies LP12 and LP16, as well as the high quality environments SPD, so it's recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, Gavin, we have one speaker on this application. I'd like to invite Shana Jackson, of course. She's the agent to make all presentation in committee. Busy afternoon for you.
Right, thank you. As you've just heard, this application seeks outline planning permission for the erection of 2 dwellings. Members will recall an application for residential development on land to the south-east of the site, where it was resolved to grant planning permission on the basis that the proposal would not harm the character of the countryside and that it would make a positive contribution to the distinctiveness of the area upon the entry into Chatteris. We are the agents acting on behalf of that application, and I can advise that the submission of the conditions discharge application is imminent, and this is with a view for the plots to be sold and reserve matters submitted. In much the same way as the neighbouring application, it's submitted that this proposal will make a positive contribution to the approach into Chatteris. It presents an opportunity site to provide bespoke, high-quality houses which set the scene on the approach into the town. The site feels like the last puzzle in terms of the approach into Chatteris on this side of the highway, with the natural end to the development being defined by Highfield Lodge to the rear and the parameters of the existing paddock. I would argue that the scheme comprises a logical addition to the area which would enhance the immediate setting by allowing the opportunity to provide high-quality homes. There are no technical objections to the proposal, the only issue being a matter of interpretation as to whether the development would comprise urbanisation and sprawl. In much the same way as you consider the site to the southeast, I would argue that the proposal would not harm the character of the countryside and that it would instead make a positive contribution to the distinctiveness of the area upon the entry into Chatteris. I hope you're able to agree. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Members, questions to Mrs. Jackson? Councillor French? You're using your pen. Okay. Good as excuse I've heard this afternoon. Anybody else got any questions? We'll go back to Mrs. Jackson at all. No? Thank you very much. Members, questions to officers? No? So, thank you. I now invite members to debate the item in respect of material considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So we're in debate. Anyone who kicks off the debate? Councillor French, thank you.
Thank you. This one, officers have got this spot on. I think it would totally destroy the outlook of the farmhouse that's already there. That's all I'm going to say.
Councillor Marks, thank you.
Thank you. I have to say I agree. We sat here when we gave the last lot of planning for those last houses. We said at that point, no more. That was as far as we wanted to go. It's just getting more and more sprawled out as we go. The farmhouse stands well back, and it has been a farmhouse. It was never just built as a house for the purpose of being a house. It had a reason to be there. And as you go around the corner a bit further, there is another farmhouse that stands back on quite a site as well. I just think this is just getting too much along there. Equally, the speed limits and stuff have been reduced along there, but there was a bad accident at the bridge a bit further around the other day as well. I think there's quite a few issues here as to why I would be hesitant to even look at this, and I do believe officers have got this right on this occasion.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. Anybody else want to add to the debate? Councillor Benny, thank you.
The risk of giving Joe more typing to do. Yeah, I think putting houses in front of the farmhouse detracts from the farmhouse. I argued for the other houses there. I do like to see nice houses on the approach to a village or a town, but there has to be a limit. We don't want that to go right the way up to the river, And I think as Councillor Mart said, we said when those others were granted, these and no more. And it's a matter of public record, which I feel we should adhere to.
Okay. Councillor Senate Clough, thank you.
Just to come in and reinforce what others have said, LP 16D doesn't make a positive contribution as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you. All Councillor Mifferton.
I should just add my voice to it. Everyone seems to, yeah.
Well done, thank you. Right, I think we've all had a little bit of a say. Thank you very much. I'm going to close the debate. Officers? No? Right. So I'm looking to go with officers' proposal to recommendation to refuse this application. Can I have a proposer on that? Councillor Mifferton. Councillor French seconded. So I've got a proposal to go with officer recommendation to refuse this application, proposed by Councillor Mifferton, seconded by Councillor French. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal, please?
Unanimous decision, Chairman.
So that has been refused. So it comes to the agenda item number 13 on land west of the avenue, March, which has had a confidential information within it. However, I intend to keep this item in the public unless there is a need to discuss it, the confidential information. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's it. Now we can start. So, right, so Matthew, you're going to do a short presentation, hopefully.
Thank you, Chairman. Yep, I will keep it short. As members are aware, we recently had an application at committee at reference 21/1497 that related to an outline application up to 120 dwellings with associated development. At the debate, members raised some significant concerns in relation to highway safety, particularly during the construction period, and looked to amend condition 45. After the meeting, the applicant indicated that if the decision did go out with that amended condition, they would be likely to look to appeal that decision and to look for full award of costs. That was therefore a new material consideration for members, and this was brought, therefore, thought we should bring this back to members with this information before them. And as members are aware, officers are recommending that the application is determined in accordance with paragraph or section 12 of the original officer's report in relation to the draft delegating the final conditions to myself alongside the completion of a section 106 and the potential for refusal if the section 106 isn't completed, but as that shows in appendix 1, the officer's original recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is something that we wished for, not something that we knew that we could force this on. And bearing in mind, some of you around this table will know, but some of you will not. We had an application approved in 2003 with a recommendation of a roundabout. We ended up not getting the roundabout, and 20 odd years later we've got traffic lights. I just hope we don't go down the same situation, and I wouldn't name the developer, but that was for 130, I think it was 135 or 137 dwellings. I just hope 20 years down the line, we won't be here, but we actually get this roundabout. I would.
Well, there's nothing else to say, really. Councillor Benny, yes, there is.
Here we are again, bad decisions that cost money. If we go there, if we don't agree this will go to appeal, we will lose. The committee's done its best for the people of March, and if this goes to appeal, we end up with what we didn't want. We didn't get what we wanted for. We'll still get what we didn't want in the first place, and this will cost us a lot of money. And you can't make bad decisions that cost money. This other people's money we're playing with here. This needs to go with the recommendation.
Councillor Marks.
Having heard what Councillor French has said and Councillor Benny, yeah, I again fully agree. However, I hope that the developers will be hearing what we're saying today and they will treat going forward and realise that, yeah, okay, we are to a degree giving in. However, I'm sure they may be able to help us going forward with a bit of goodwill as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, as our legal executive said, costs are not a material planning consideration, but only a fool has to just say, well, it doesn't matter. Of course it matters because it's taxpayers' money, and some hard times are ahead, I think. So don't base the decision just on cost. Base it on, on the relevant details that you've been told. Councillor Marks.
May I also say safety and also disruption to other people is not a planning issue. However, perhaps again, the developers will take that into consideration.
One would hope so, one would hope so. Anyway, anybody else got anything to say? No? I need a proposer for this, really, to go along with Councillor French. You're going to propose it. Councillor Miffidan's going to second it, that we withdraw condition number 45, being the roundabout. Okay? So can I have a show of hands on that?
It's unanimous decision.
Okay, so...
For clarity, members, that's as in not amending the condition as suggested. So, and then the recommendation as laid out in the visual officer's report, that is the planning committee delegates authority in relation to the section 106, and then subsequently the conditions as in the original recommendation on the original officer's report.
Yeah. So we're not going to make them do the roundabout. That's what it means.
Do it, Chairman, as in currently it suggests 40. I think. Yeah, not till 201 dwellings. And that's
That's
correct,
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a unanimous decision.
Thank you very much.